Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am the Twisted Jedi, and today I'm going to be showing you how to dominate with Iden Versio, and also the best star cards for both Galactic Assault and Heroes vs Villains. Now before I jump into it, I want to say thank you all so much for 2,000 subscribers. I appreciate every one of you for supporting the channel, and I hope you're all really enjoying the videos. Anyways, diving into Iden's analysis, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the same thing I mentioned in all of my hero guides, and that is that you want to use Iden on the right maps for Galactic Assault. In Heroes vs Villains, she's good on pretty much any map, but on Galactic Assault, I have found that she is really good on maps with a balance of slightly open areas and then tight corridors. Maps like the Death Star 2, Naboo, and Kamino are perfect for Iden's ability set, as she has a good balance of close range and long range attacks. Her Pulse Cannon gives really good range when used correctly, although I feel like it should have a faster charge time. Her secondary shot is really good for mid range, and her primary weapon, Shock Droid and Personal Shield, are great in close quarters. When in close quarters and choke points, Iden's secondary fire can be extremely useful for taking out enemies and holding defensive positions. With practically a one-shot kill to any assault, officer, or specialist class, and a 2-hit kill for the heavies, you should be using this ability as much as possible in the close quarter choke points. If you are, however, using Iden on open maps, then her Pulse Cannon can be used, but it can be quite tricky. I have found that it's great heading into the last phase on Kashyyyk, however, be prepared to duck in and out from behind cover, as there will be other snipers hanging around. Now, starting off with Galactic Assault, Iden can be an absolute machine when used right. I never really used her in Battlefront 2, but after her recent droid stun fix in a previous patch, and now a health buff up to 650 points in the most recent patch 2.0, I have started using her much more, and she's definitely one of my go-to villains behind Darth Vader. Now, dominating Galactic Assault with Iden, like any hero, is about getting her early on in the match and staying alive for as long as possible. Lucky to help with survivability, Iden has a star card that helps with this. Now, I believe this card wasn't in the game until just recently, and I think it did come with patch 2.0. This card is the first thing in my loadout that I've been using, and it is called Friend in Battle. Now, Friend in Battle gives Iden 30 bonus health for each enemy trooper she shocks with her droid, and 70 bonus health for an enemy hero it shocks when at the epic level. This can be extremely useful for staying alive for longer periods of time, and also regaining health if you ever get low. The second card for Galactic Assault you should be using with Iden is the Alternate Methods star card. This is extremely useful, like I mentioned before, in choke points and corridors, as it allows Iden to fire her secondary shot up to 25% faster than normal, and with the power that this weapon packs, it's a nightmare for the opposing team. I personally managed to get 19 kills in just a few minutes on the second phase of the Death Star by putting this card and ability to full effect. And finally, the last card I use for Iden in Galactic Assault is the Shock Reach card. Simply put, this card has a bigger area of effect when shocking targets. So basically, you can shock more enemies in an area. Using this combined with the secondary fire can allow for multiple quick kills in a small area, and can also avoid you taking too much damage if you get pushed up on by an enemy squad or group of enemies. Along with being good for shocking multiple enemies, it also stacks really well with your Friend in Battle card that I mentioned earlier to allow for maximum health regeneration as you shock more targets that are around each other. And now we're going to jump into the one for Heroes vs Villains. Iden can be an absolute beast in Heroes vs Villains when used the right way. Her droid stun is extremely effective against all heroes, and her blaster is effective enough to take them out while the stun is in effect. So the first card I attached when using Iden in Heroes vs Villains is the Cooled Blaster star card, which allows Iden's TL50 blaster to build less heat when firing. This card gives Iden's blaster the ability to melt any hero without having to reload or cool her blaster, and can be extremely useful for HVV. The second card I use is the Droid Batteries card. This allows the stun droid and droid batteries both to have decreased recharge time. This card is really great to use, as it will allow you to shock the enemy team more often, which definitely leads to a lot of kills. And the final card I use for Heroes vs Villains is the Shock Reach card. This pretty much is self-explanatory and gives you a larger area of effect when searching for shock targets. In turn, it can be really useful on the open maps like Starkiller Base in Heroes vs Villains, as it does have quite an open space to run around in. So those are the two loadouts I use for Iden in Galactic Assault and Heroes vs Villains. Moving into some strategy tips for Iden, they are all pretty straightforward, but there could also be a few things you might be neglecting without even realizing how effective they are. Tip number 1 is when using Iden on Galactic Assault, the biggest thing is to use the secondary fire whenever you get the chance. Its splash damage is huge for taking out troopers, and and using the primary fire should be saved for extremely close contact with the opposition or when shocking and attacking enemy heroes. The TL50 doesn't have the most accurate fire rate, so it does have a little bit of spread, which is where the secondary fire can come in handy if you are attacking enemies that are a little bit further away. Tip number 2 is when retreating back to the next sector at the end of a phase is to activate the droid shield before turning and getting back there. Nothing is worse than running back to the new defensive position and dying because you've been shot in the back multiple times by enemies that you can't even see because you're running the other way. Tip number 3, guys, is definitely a really good one for heroes versus villains, and if you've used Iden a lot in HVV, you'll definitely know this tip. But if you're going up against lightsaber users like Luke, Yoda, or Rey, this is going to be a huge advantage for you if you're going up against them one-on-one. Now, using the shock ability sometimes doesn't always work to the effect you want it to, and it leaves them with a little bit of health when they get out of it. They will probably try and block your blaster fire on the primary shot, so you need to use the secondary shot to get that splash damage. Now, if they have a little bit of health left, fire the secondary shot at them and the splash damage should take out the remaining amount of health, and it's a really good counter for someone that's good with blocking and basically doing everything they can to stay alive. So the secondary fire can be really useful in heroes vs villains, or if you stumble across another hero in Galactic Assault. So Iden can be really effective one-on-one against anyone in the game. It's a huge advantage she has, not just with the shock droid, but having that secondary fire as well. And lastly, to know the right and wrong times to use Iden's pulse cannon ability. The only place I have found useful is moving into the last phase on Kashyyyk and possibly in the first phase on Crait if you can manage to get enough points to get her early enough. It can also be used on Naboo in the first phase, however it can be tricky, so be careful when trying it out on that map. I don't personally use the pulse cannon very much at all, as I feel like her primary weapon and secondary fire is definitely sufficient enough, and I like to be more of a close to mid-range combat than a long-range sniper. Anyways guys, I hope these tips have helped you and will continue to help you dominate with Iden, not just in Galactic Assault, but in heroes vs villains as well. Do me a favor and go out and test these 2 loadouts, as well as the tips that I've suggested, and come back to this video and let me know how you went. If you have any extra tips that you figure out as well, be sure to leave them in the comments below too. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more hero guides just like this and news updates for Battlefront 2. Anyways, I am going to get out of here guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you again for 2,000 subscribers. May the Force be with you always.